There, now everyone can hear me. So I wanted to go live today to test a few things out. First, I wanted to test out this microphone that's attached to my phone here. It's moving the camera. Hopefully it provides quality audio. The other thing I wanted to do was I had just read Brandon Sanderson's latest book, Wind and Truth. I thought it was amazing. It's only February, and it's probably going to be the best book I've read so far this year. So, I was hoping I could share a few of my favorite lines from the book. Let's see how this goes. I'm going to move the camera slightly. I'm going to try to get the microphone over closer to. And we'll start with the first one. I did take notes as I listened to this book, audio notes. So some of it might not look right, but I'll listen to the quote from the audiobook, and if I need to back, I'll just provide it live. So this should be the first clip here. The death of Avalar.
This, the assassin said, the words barely intelligible. The man held his hand to the side, summoning a blade. This was it. Behind the assassin, a halo, a corona of shimmering light. The Stormfather. I did not cause this, the Stormfather said in his head. I do not know whether that brings you peace in your last moments, Gavilar. But then who?
Oh, okay. So this was actually not Avalar. This was the death of Gavilar. So here we go. The first issue with the notes taken while I'm talking. I found it really interesting that it went back to the first night where the books actually started, but I was rather confused as to where they were going with this. Let's go to the next quote. I'm not going to share all of these here. This next quote I do want to share. Apparently, it gave me chills at the time.
Still, she cocked her head. I feel something on the wind. It's speaking to me, he said, one hand to his head. A storm is coming, Gallatin, the wind whispered. The worst storm. It was gone. What did you hear? Syl asked. A warning, he said, frowning.
Yeah, that was the first time the wind had spoken to Kaladin, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. The one thing I don't find amazing at the moment is how slow the quotes are. I tend to read at 2x speed. So these quotes are just incredibly slow to me. But at the time when I was listening to that for the first time, I found it exhilarating that that this was happening, that these old gods were willing to help Kaladin. But this says there was interesting comic relief with Kaladin, so I'll play this.
Well, that would be. Do you even exist? He said, saying it before he thought through the words. Under the clothing. I mean, are the clothes your skin, or... She leaned toward him. Honest. No, he said, imagining her banishing her clothing right there in the middle of the book Quartermaster Depot.
All right, that was interesting how embarrassed Kaladin got when he was talking to Syl. I find their interactions some of the best in the series. Have such a bond together. Here's one note that I'll read before I play the quote. The theme of these books, or one of the major themes, is just mental health, and it's just it happens all the time. He goes back to it a lot.
With Shalon, and I can't help our near would feed off one another in dangerous ways. My sadness fueling her feelings of abandonment when I retreat, her self-destruction triggering my panic at being unable to help. He looked to Syl and smiled. It wouldn't have to go that way, of course. I've seen that it can help to be around people who understand firsthand what it's like for your mind to betray you. You'd have out. But right now,
Yeah, so I found a lot of those quotes in the book, and I actually went a bit too far with making them a clip and bookmarking them. I found it really interesting that, and at this point, I should probably start to say there are some spoilers here, especially coming up very soon. But the I find it incredibly interesting that Kaladin now seems to be the person that gets to help others in need, in this type of mental need, even though uh, he may have scratched the surface of his mental illness. However, um, he still has a lot of work to do. But the next quote I found incredibly intriguing and probably possibly a spoiler. If you're watching now, if you watch on the recorded portion and you haven't read the book yet, it's, well, you know, don't keep listening to this.
changed from a frightened and abused creature with dim light and a symbol flickering at the center to a glowing, confident sphere. Storms. This was the thing they'd used to communicate. It knew everything they'd discussed. The real spy hadn't been Shalon. He felt such a fool. He, more than any, should have realized the potential for Spren to turn against you. He struggled weakly in the strange bonds. I was about to interrogate him.
It didn't say it there. I may have been a little late with the quote. Setting the quote during the audiobook, I tend to drive while I'm um, putting these, listening and trying to quote at the same time. But in the probably prior few seconds before the recording, I was shaken, if you will, that the name Lord Kelsier came up. Um, I couldn't figure out how that played, but the fact that that name was brought up, um, man, it brings up a lot of questions in my head. Considering that Brandon Sanderson has this Cosmere and everything is very well connected, um, how does this name come about now? And what does it mean for future books if there is a Lord Kelsier that's communicating in between these worlds in the Cosmere? Wow, I guess I'll leave it at that. I don't want to do any speculating, but it's to me it's pretty obvious where this may go, and I'm here for it. Let's look at some additional quotes. I'm not gonna keep this too long. I was hoping to speak for about 10 minutes, maybe 15. That's about all the free time I have. So we'll see if there's anything else worth going through. I may not share the spoilers at the end, the quotes at the end, but suffice to say, the ending was excellent. The entire book was very well paced if you like action the entire time, or mostly the entire time. I did feel like the book settled and slowed down incredibly. Shalon tended to walk through certain um, sections of it. But let me look and see if there's any one or two additional quotes worth sharing. Oh, wow. I actually said for this specific one, this specific quote, I said I was almost crying that the family insisted on leaving with him. So this must have been Zeth's family. Um, Taking up the idea of not leaving him alone, excuse me, talking up the idea of not leaving him alone. This was incredibly heartwarming to me. Um, why the only additional note I have here is why did something break in Zeth then? But let's
Thing broke in Zeth then. It was a strange sensation, feeling his emotions snap, like a clay vessel dropped to the ground. A burst of pain at hearing his father insist, followed by rushing warmth and relief. Zeth wouldn't be alone. Naturo, the farmer said, you are my best administrator. No, if you are going to teach my son to kill, then you will teach me as well, so that...
Okay. So, uh, I won't speak on anyone else's behalf, but I think we've all been in situations where a feeling kind of broke in and kind of covered um, your body. So I guess that's more of the fact that the feeling of warmth just radiated all through him. I thought that was a really awesome quote. Oh, this was really cool. And again, spoiler warning.
And pounded spikes of light through his skull. He screamed, but this time the screams were in defiance of the pain, both outside and in. They were in rejection of the guilt, for he had been working for a greater world. How dare they fight against him? How dare Kaladin claim to protect when he defended the highborn who murdered? He was a pawn. How dare he not admit it? How dare he serve them? When it was finished,
There's no doubt in my mind that his name escapes me, but um, the that guy from Bridge 4, I mean, they made him an Inquisitor, right? From Mistborn. It's like almost directly from the Mistborn trilogy how they created Inquisitors. So I thought that was really cool. Yet, I don't know if is this being forced a little bit. I mean, we're in the fifth book, so likely not. But I would like more information about how these worlds are talking to each other. There's some hints of it, so we'll obviously get there, but a little bit more foreshadowing would be cool. Man, these quotes are just too good. um, Maybe I'll play this one. Maybe I'll know what's going on in the notes. I do write. I don't know what's going on here, so maybe we'll just listen to it. Maybe we won't have anything additional to add, but we'll see.
The Blackthorn has gone mad from his strange visions, he shouted to the panicked guards outside. He's trying to kill me and take the throne. Younger Dalinar pulled him back into the room and threw him to the floor. Then the younger him leaned down and smashed his fist in.
Okay. The younger Dalinar and older Dalinar fight was it was really difficult to get through for me to try to figure out what was going on, who was the younger Dalinar. I mean, we find out a little bit more later, but I'll just leave it at that. It was rather confusing. Um, okay, maybe we'll end on this one or the last two, but on this one gave me chills.
I... Show me, Dalinar said softly, so that I can understand. The Stormfather blinked open, tear-reddened eyes and looked at him. It hurts. Maybe that's the point. Maybe emotions don't make us weak. Maybe they teach us. Like the pain of touching a hot stove. They show us what we should do and remind us what we should.
In that scene, Dalinar says, you know, let me help you carry it. That's really cool. His character was incredible, in my opinion. I don't think I'd be alone.
Do it. He'd take up the mantle. He'd give away everything he'd started to dream he could have. He'd do it. But he had to make the choice. It was a luxury that he'd never before wanted, but that now, suddenly, he absolutely needed. So be it, Nin said, raising his sword in one hand. We will do this the more difficult way. I do not think it is possible, but you will have to
That wasn't the quote I thought it would be. Um, it, I, I do have trouble capturing the quote when I'm listening to the book, but from what I recall uh, in this dialogue, it's when Kaladin intercedes on Zeth's behalf, and in this specific section, you kind of feel it happening. You know it's going to happen, but to hear it happen, um, it was really good. It was excellent, in my opinion. So, again, I don't want to go through all these, but I really thought it was an excellent book. I did want to attempt to test this out as a method of getting my thoughts on these books that I listen to out there, out of my head and onto not paper but on video. So for anyone who ends up listening to this, I hope you enjoy it. I thought this was great. Um, Selfishly, this is more for myself than anything. Hopefully, the audio worked, and if you do end up listening, take some of these quotes or add your own quotes into the chat, into the messages. That would be cool as well. It's too good a book not to share your thoughts on. Um, and that's it. Thanks.